Hello, Dog Nation. Welcome in to Go with the Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews, our weekly look at the big games of the upcoming weekend from a point spread perspective, and a lot of fun games to pick here. Coming up in just a moment, you'll get a chance to hear my thoughts, plus many of our Dog Nation colleagues and our friend Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews. It is all coming up in a moment, but leading into this week's picks, always appropriate to go back and look and see how we did this past week as well, and this is one of those I'd rather avoid. Bloodbath for me overall. A 2-4 week now puts me in a tie with Jeff Sintel. The entirety of our panel not doing great right now, if we must be honest. If 15-15 is enough to lead it, that means we're in real trouble. And last week was tough for everybody but Mike. So 3-3 for me last week, 3-3 for Jeff last week, 15-15 on the year. 2-4 for me, 15-15 on the year. Connor also 2-4, a game behind me at 14-16. Tied with Kaylee, who was 1-5 last week, as was Dari. Mike, though, a hot week for him, 5-1, still 12-18 on the year. So best to flush that mess and move on to the upcoming week here. And we'll hope that we're able to do that with more success than we were obviously collectively, for the most part, other than Mike, as a group last week. And we'll see if we can start making some winning picks here to kind of raise the overall level of the show here, too. I'll take personal responsibility for that because, man, my picks last week were simply atrocious. But what's not atrocious is the fact that we get a chance to do this show each and every week and talk about our friends at R.S. Andrews, because when it comes to air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric, that's a pick that always ends up being the correct one, especially as you start thinking about this time of year, watching football, enjoying that. You don't want your weekend ruined by a plumbing emergency. Let's say your water heater goes out. In many cases, R.S. Andrews can replace that for you the same day. So I want you to find them online, rsandrews.com, for a lot more on that. It's rsandrews.com. They bring the show to us each and every week. And, of course, we appreciate our friend Dari Payro for being a part of that. And, by the way, speaking of Dari, fun weekend here coming up, getting deep into SEC play. You also got top 25 matchups in the Big Ten, too, a couple of those, one of which we'll pick officially. I think we've officially made it to the heart of the college football season, where week in and week out you've got a stacked lineup of games. I would certainly say that's the case here this weekend.
I mean, you would think typically you kind of find your footing with this many games under your belt that you get to see. And I kind of feel lost right now with just kind of everything I'm looking at. So to me, I'm not seeing a lot of these games clearly. It's for me, it's tough. The NFL, I'm doing pretty good. I'm got a pretty good grasp on kind of where teams are there. But like in college, it just seems for me hard to get a grasp on what's what.
No, I understand that. And obviously, this weekend, injuries to quarterbacks going to complicate that even more. But we'll see if we can take some cuts here, and we'll see if we can make some picks. Really good stuff. And, of course, we'll begin, as always, with the Georgia Bulldogs going on the road to Auburn on Saturday. Dogs have dominated this rivalry as of late, but historically, Jordan-Hare Stadium also tough place to play. Texas A&M was Auburn's last opponent 2 weeks ago. That was a game bad enough that Hugh Freeze has been pretty apologetic for that heading to this rivalry game on Saturday. Of course, Auburn 8-5 against the spread after a loss under Hugh Freeze, so they've shown some bounce-back potential in the past. Georgia, though, struggling in the favorite role thus far this season, just 1-4 against the spread with that mark, but they did cover the number last week, winning easily against Kentucky, but a step up in weight class, going on the road, traditional rival. Auburn hosting Georgia, what's known as the Deep South's oldest rivalry. We're going to make Auburn here a 3.5-point home underdog. And Mike Griffith, we're going to go to you for your thoughts on Georgia and Auburn.
Yeah, it's great that Georgia finally beat the spread this year. I actually picked up a game on that. I'm going to ride the hot dogs here. I think that, Auburn does have some issues. I think it will be a close game. But when in doubt, I go with the line of scrimmage. I know Auburn has a really good run defense. I know that Georgia has a negative turnover ratio, but, borrowing a line from my friend Kaylee Manziel, there's always that regression to the mean, right? So you got to think that things are going to turn for the Dogs and they'll get a little bit closer to a positive turnover ratio and win this game on the Plains.
So Mike on the side of Georgia, Jeff Sintel, I'm out for you.
I think the Dogs are going to go to the loveliest village on the plain and do some streaking. 2 straight covers. I believe it would be 4 straight in Auburn and 9 straight in the series. So I like the Dogs to cover that 3.5.
A lot of love for Georgia right now, just slightly above a field goal favorite, but that doesn't scare the riders off here thus far. Connor Riley, what about for you?
Normally in this situation, I would pick Auburn here because I know that Jeff and Mike have gone heavily on the dogs here. But I'm going to pick Auburn for a different reason here because I think Mr. Adams believes that Auburn is going to win this game outright, but he's not going to have the courage to pick it. And so he's going to pick Georgia because he wants to keep a friendly Georgia persona. So I'm going to take his advice here, and I'm going to take Auburn plus 3.5.
You'll have to wait and find out what my pick is here coming up in just a moment. But interesting reasoning from Connor there for sure. Kaylee Manziel, how about for you?
At the beginning of the year, this was a game that terrified me for Georgia. I wouldn't say that that initial scaredness is gone, but I'm looking to make my pick here, not because I think that Georgia is miles ahead, but because of what Auburn has not done at this point. You look at their past SEC games where it's been really close scores, and you can point to different things and say, well, if this wouldn't have happened or if this would have happened, then they would have won. But in my mind, a really good team finds a way to win those games. So this is more doubt towards Auburn than a trust in Georgia. So I am going to take the dogs today.
So Kaylee on the side of Georgia, Connor mentioning my feelings on the game, and I'll get to that, but let me begin this way. I was curious. We think of Jordan-Hare Stadium as being this incredibly difficult place to play. Historically, it has been. I think the perception I've had is in the Hugh Freeze era, that's less so. So I wanted to examine this and find out how true that is. And some of the numbers I saw backed up what I expected, some a little bit surprising. So last 9 home games under Hugh Freeze, this dates back to the beginning of last season, Auburn just 3-6 in those 9 against the spread. That feels like what the Freeze era has been, just below expectations no matter where the game has been played. In SEC play in the last 8 under Hugh Freeze, 4-4 against the spread. The one place where the Jordan-Hare mystique perhaps still does exist, in the last 4 instances in which Auburn has been a home underdog, it has covered in 3 of those games, including an outright win against Texas A&M last year. So as an underdog, what Auburn finds itself in on Saturday, maybe there is a little some of that left over. The truth is Connor's at least right about one thing. I am, as a Georgia fan, pretty concerned about this game on Saturday. I am not picking Georgia to lose, but I will tell you, for the people who track these numbers on a regular basis, obviously the most key number in college football is 3. This spread is in excess of that. But if you're paying attention to line movement throughout the week, 2 and 1 are not dead numbers. We see 2-point margins, 1-point margins all the time. The point here is just because you take Auburn plus the points doesn't mean you think Georgia's going to lose, although it certainly suggests that losing is a possibility. And I have to be honest, I think that is a possibility. I think that Georgia could lose this game. I desperately hope that they don't. I believe they probably won't, but I could see them having to go down to the wire and win at the very last second. So in a rare spot for me, I do take Auburn plus the points here with the hope that Georgia can figure out a way to pull it out. Flow, though, is on the side of Georgia. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Georgia?
Even with all the hype that we have with the Cam Newton retiring the jersey, all the noise with Will Freeze lose his job, is his back against the wall, is his coaching staff, and they're all focused on this. I think this is more of a trendy pick for people to take Auburn on the upset. I think kind of where I like this here, I'm going to trust Kirby because I think he knows that this is his last big road game that he has to deal with. So I think he's going to be highly focused for this game. I think he's going to have the players highly focused for the game. And most importantly, I think he's going to have his coaching staff extremely highly focused for this game. I love Georgia to cover this number. And if you're scared about anything, I bet this number will drop to 3 or just under 3 before kickoff. So you can get some extra value there, but I like him at 3.5. Give me the dogs.
So Dari Payro, even though we're competing here, the contest, I would love nothing more than for you to be right and me to be wrong. I certainly hope that's the case. Interesting reasoning there. Obviously, this has been a venue that Georgia has been comfortable in. Although keep in mind the last game in 2023 between these two teams was closer than experts predicted, but nonetheless, Georgia working on a long winning streak against Auburn and a pretty good streak at Jordan-Hare Stadium as well. So we're off and running for today's show. Georgia against Auburn, more narrow spread than some folks perhaps thought that it might be. Similar situation for our next game. The team that beat Georgia just a couple of weeks ago, Alabama, fresh off what was maybe a more emotional than folks maybe anticipated win against Vanderbilt. Certainly more competitive in some respects than some thought it would be. Game in Tuscaloosa last week. Now Alabama goes on the road, SEC play. Last year, Alabama handled Missouri easily. This year, though, got to go out to Columbia, where Missouri's off to a hot start this season, 5-0 on the season. Blowout win against UMass last week. Against these ranked teams, though, against the spread, not always automatic for Missouri, but nonetheless better than 500, which is a pretty good mark overall for a Missouri team that frequently plays in the underdog role there. Alabama already off to a hot start against the spread in conference play here, too. Narrow spread, smaller than some might have thought. Missouri getting 3.5 here at home with Alabama coming to call. Mike Griffith, we go back to you.
Yeah, I made a mistake picking against Alabama last week. They got the late home cover against Vanderbilt, and this new system that I've got for picking games that led me that 5-1 record when you guys struggled a little bit.
Is it a new system? Is it a new system?
It's a new system.
Good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
And it is. I'm going to ride it while I can and talk while I can, because I've been getting beat up all week by you guys for my bad picks. So I'm going to enjoy 1 week at least. I'm going to go with the home team. Missouri's, they're a good football team. They've got a great running back. Their quarterback's playing well. They had a bye week. I didn't think Alabama was all that convincing early in the game against Vanderbilt. So let me ride the home underdog in the SEC here and take the Missouri Tigers with a new and improved system of picking this week, Brandon.
I like the new improved system. It certainly worked for you last week. Numbers, listen, they don't ask you how, they just ask you how many. And last week you had 5, which was far better than anybody else. And that's all you got to say about that. Jeff Sintel, how about for you? Como's the spot. Missouri's getting 3.5. Bama on the road. What do you think?
Brandon, since we're sticking our chest out here right now, I think the system that has me in the co-lead right now in the standings, that tells me to look at a couple of things. What I'm looking squarely at is Como and Missouri's season opponents this year. They've played Central Arkansas, Kansas, South Carolina, 9-point game, Kansas, 11-point game. And yet we hear about how they may have the best pass rusher in the SEC, how they may have the best, most talented quarterback, or at least one of the top 2 or 3 in the SEC. This rushing attack that's just amazing right now. They haven't faced a team like Alabama. I'm not scared of that line. The Simpson Heisman bandwagon gets a lot more steam going through the Show Me State. Give me Alabama here in a big way.
So a couple of things. First of all, split decision there when it comes to Alabama and Missouri. Also, until one of us is above 53% on the season, which is what it takes to break even with the vigorish tacked into it. I don't think there'll be any bragging about who's ranked where. We got to get somebody above whether it's me or somebody else. Somebody's got to be in the profitable category here pretty soon. Hopefully that'll be the case here. But nonetheless, split decision between Alabama and Missouri here right now, which means, as we frequently do, come to Connor Riley to break the tie.
Yeah, I hear all this talk about records and whatnot, and a lot of tooting your own horn for some crummy picks out there. I'm with BA on that sense. Give me Alabama here. 3.5 is just a little bit too small here. I know Ahmad Hardy is a great running back, but I think Alabama finds a way to win this game by more than 3 points. Sometimes it really can be just that simple.
Kaylee Manziel, how about for you?
I just want to preface these next 1, 2, 3, 4 picks by reiterating something that Dari said off the top. And no, it's not because I went 1-5 last week, but I feel like at this point in the season, the more we get to know about these teams, the less I feel like I know, which is what makes this slate of games so tricky. I think when it comes to Alabama and Missouri, in particular, there can be cases that are made for both sides. I do think that Missouri has one of the best running backs in the SEC, but what it really comes down to for me is the turnover margin and how little Alabama has turned the ball over up to this point. That's been an issue for Missouri pretty early on. So I think that Alabama just plays cleaner games as a whole. So I'm looking to that number to take the Tide this week, but these next 4 games that we're going to pick, I wouldn't feel good about putting money down on any of them just because the SEC is a really strange place right now.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Kaylee. I think my comp is a little shaken too after a bad week last week. And as Connor said, when you feel like you really need to get a pick right, my strategy oftentimes is just to lean back into something that's pretty simple. A lot of folks who were with me on DawgNation Daily will know that to begin the season, my favorite season win total over was Missouri, over 7.5. And at a 5-0 mark already, it feels like Missouri's going to have a great chance of exceeding that total and make good on my preseason prediction. But keep in mind, going 8-4 doesn't require you beating Alabama. It just doesn't. This was a blowout loss for Missouri a year ago. So we are still solidly on pace to exceed the 7.5 total for Missouri, whether it wins this game or not. I'll ask the same question about this game I did about the Alabama-Vanderbilt game last week. Everything that Vanderbilt had done coming into that game was legitimate, and they actually ended up being pretty competitive for most of the game. But who's the kind of team that goes into Tuscaloosa and has a chance to win? That's typically among the better teams in the SEC. Vanderbilt's improved. We don't think they're there yet. Similar situation for Missouri. It's undefeated, probably a couple of the better transfers in the league, both offense and defense. We think about Prabula and Damon Wilson. But who's the kind of team that actually goes 6-0 by beating Alabama, or even has a chance down to the wire to have the opportunity to do that? It's the sort of SEC team that could make the college football playoff. And that's not quite what I have Missouri being. I think of this as something of a heat check type game where Missouri's clearly good, better than a lot of folks thought before the season began. But even if that's true, it doesn't mean you're beating Alabama. I don't always love team going on the road after having the big home game, but assuming Alabama has the wherewithal to withstand this, because it is a small number, I do take Alabama here minus the 3.5. That puts the flow on the side of the Crimson Tide as well. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Bama?
That's a tough one. I mean, you have two tough games that they've kind of slugged it out. You have the Georgia game, then you got Vandy. The line opened at 5.5. I think it may be down to 3 now. I think it's going in that direction. I think there's a lot of money and tickets going on Missouri. I think that kind of says something. I think it says something where they kind of set this line. I'm gonna expect some chaos. Let's get some more chaos in college football. And, I'm going to take a flyer on Missouri at home here to cover this number. I think Prabula can scramble a lot like Pavia and kind of extend some plays just enough to kind of keep this game close. They're coming off a bye. They have the extra time to prepare. I think that's going to be an X factor here is him running the ball and the inability for Alabama to establish their running game. I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I love Simpson. That dude's a stud, but there's just something that smells fishy about this game. And instead of me just saying that and not trusting my gut and going out on that long, skinny branch, I'm going to do that here, and I'm going to take Missouri.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point. The public at large was surprised by the spread when it first came out, and yet, as Dari points out, even with that this week, it has been a one-way street on Missouri. Folks cutting in line to take the Tigers. What was already, a surprising line when it opened, now, as Dari said, more likely to be seen at 3, maybe than 3.5 here right now. A lot of action on Mizzou here at the moment. A pretty fun game in the SEC as Alabama tries to stay hot after the win against Georgia a couple of weeks ago and taking down what turned out to be a pretty live dog for most of the game anyway with Vanderbilt last week before eventually Alabama found its way to the pay window and the cover. Now we'll stay in, strangely enough, SEC play. We're getting used to both Texas and Oklahoma being in this league now. It's the State Fair in Dallas. It's known, at least I still call it the Red River Shootout, although I think officially the moniker is something different. Of course, the big story in this game is the status of Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer. The reports coming out of Norman this week, choose to believe if you want, is that Mateer is going to try to play. Line would suggest odds makers think he won't. Texas finds itself as a 1.5-point favorite, which is obviously a surprise to many, coming off the poor performance for Texas last week at Florida. And yet, be careful with this spread, assuming you know too much when it comes to this. Texas already lost twice this season, now unranked in the AP poll after being the preseason number 1, have not been out of the poll since 2022. Oklahoma, on the other hand, feeling pretty good about itself here right now, although it finds itself in an underdog role for the first time in the 2025 season. The status of Mateer, obviously a factor in that. So, Mike Griffith will come to you here. Texas, a skinny little 1.5-point favorite against Oklahoma. John Mateer's status clouded in mystery. Rivalry game. This has got a lot going on. What do you think about this?
So Brandon, the line started at what, 3.5 for this game in favor of Texas, and it's down to 1.5. Is that
A
right?
little bit of movement. That's right.
And so the money's been going on Oklahoma.
A lot of you would assume so based on the line movement.
This game's a toss-up to me. I don't think John Mateer is going to play. I think this could be a case of Texas looking past Florida. I don't think Texas is any great shapes. I expect them to lose a lot of football games, including to Georgia. But Kaylee Manziel, regression to the mean, right? I mean, Texas has to be better, and Oklahoma can't be this good. And so I still believe that Texas has a great defense. I'm not confident in Oklahoma. My new system didn't apply to this game, unfortunately. So I'm just going to go with Vegas on this. Okay. Vegas has a good day. If, as things stand, if Texas were to cover, that means the guys in Vegas can build another water fountain. So I'm going to go with the Longhorns.
And just to be clear, I think the graphic, Oklahoma undefeated at 5-0. So just to be clear about that. Jeff, Mike on the side of Texas here. What about you? Fun Red River. Let's try to speak English. Red River shootout rivalry game. Fun stuff here with that. What do you think about it?
Intriguing. I don't know if most use this or consult this, but the ESPN FPI still has Texas considerably higher than Oklahoma. I find that intriguing. I also find that intriguing that Texas's offensive line looks like a sieve right now. And the one thing that we've seen Oklahoma do is be able to apply pressure, albeit up to slow thinking SEC transfer quarterbacks. I think Mateer plays. I think it's 17 days post-surgery. I think he's going to try to give it a go. Like, there's no penalty for him to try and give it a go. I think that would give him a shot in the arm. I think you have to look at players differently when they're getting $4 million plus a year now in college football. Their professional careers have already started. They're no longer at stake. And everybody at Oklahoma really wants to see the Sooners put down the Longhorns. I think that's what they're going to do, with or without John Mateer. But I think he plays. So I'll take those points. And I think the Sooners will get a win.
Well, listen, if you think Mateer is going to play, then you got about a touchdown's worth of spread value coming your way on that, because it certainly seems like odds makers think he's not. Connor Riley, how about for you?
Yeah, I've heard Mike and Jeff talk a lot about this game and very little about how poor Texas's offensive line is, and for all the talk about Oklahoma and John Mateer and what they've done. Jeff, you can raise your hand. You didn't say a whole lot about the reason the Texas offensive line is in trouble, because Oklahoma might have the best defensive line in the SEC with the talent they have there. I think that's the best unit on the field in this game. I think that makes a difference regardless of whether or not John Mateer plays. Give me Oklahoma here, and that I'm getting points even better.
Kaylee Manziel, how about for you?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to Mike for really shouting out my regression to the mean on this show. But I would also be cautious, because when I used that line last week, I did not get that pick right. So just be careful with that. I hate that we're picking this. I wish I could just double it and pass it to the next person. But I think the fact that the line is moving closer and closer to Oklahoma, that gives me enough confidence to take them in this game. I'm with Jeff. I do think that they're at least going to have John Mateer give it a go. So it's a shame that we're picking this and we still don't know, but just give me the Sooners.
So Kaylee on the side of Oklahoma, I am taking Texas here, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Reason number one, in the history of the college football playoff, the most consistent mistake that people have a tendency to make is assuming that teams are eliminated from college football playoff contention before they are. Go back to year one in 2014. Ohio State loses to Virginia Tech. Oh, they're done. As it turns out, they won that year's national championship. Even as recently as last year, Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois. They can't make the playoff. They lost to Northern Illinois. They made the playoff, and they end up playing for the national championship. I have a little bit of a vibe with that with Texas, and you can certainly point out beyond just Arch Manning lots of reasons why Texas has been far below the standard of a preseason number one with how it's played this season. And yet I think it's appropriate, and this spread reflects some of this, to try to change your mind slowly when possible. that this is a Texas team that is not eliminated from consideration yet. This is a Texas team that will have its way to play itself back into the discussion by the time the season comes to an end. And I think that's important to keep in mind because oftentimes that's a mistake that's made with the so-called playoff contenders in this playoff era. And when it comes to a prognostication, I think it's far easier to make a guess about someone's health status more so than it is about how a game is going to play out. And I do think Mateer, whether he plays or not, does make a big deal for Oklahoma because I don't think they have anywhere near the same caliber of backup. And my general rule is if you think a player is hurt, he probably is. Yes, there's been lots of chatter about Mateer giving it a go, but that to me suggests a player that's not completely healthy. And a player that's not completely healthy would probably be better off not playing. You talk to smart odds makers, they'll tell you that Mateer's probably worth about 7 points to this spread. So take him away from Oklahoma. They're clearly not the same team. Texas is not who we thought they were to begin the season, but I think still better than Oklahoma on Saturday. So I'll take the Longhorns minus 1.5, and that puts the flow on the side of Oklahoma. Dar, you want to go, actually put the flow on the side of Texas. You want to go with the flow and take Texas.
Yeah, I mean, if Mateer was healthy, I mean, this completely changes it, right? But I just don't see him coming back. Broken bone surgery on his throwing hand 2 weeks ago. I mean, I just don't see it. The line being this short, I have to lean Texas in a game that's going to be this close. I just don't think the Sooners have enough to do it without Mateer. So I'm gonna take Texas to cover that number.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty wise play. It's obviously very contrarian. I like contrarian plays, typically speaking, but I think that Texas may have a little something going on Saturday, despite the fact that the world, including our friends at The Athletic, are running from them in a mighty way here right now. Speaking of the Lone Star State, let's stay there. And the team that beat Texas last week going to College Station now to take on a Texas A&M team that week to week is turning out to be about the most consistent team, or certainly among the most consistent teams in the SEC. Texas A&M hosting Florida. Number here is 7.5. Last week, Texas A&M defense showed up again in a big way, taking down Mississippi State 31-9. However, Kyle Field, not exactly the house of horrors for opposing teams that by reputation you'd think it might be. On the other side, Florida just 2-3 on the season. But boy, feeling much better about itself after the win against Texas last week. Gauntlet of a schedule continues. Florida losing record against the spread when facing those ranked teams thus far this season. And it does not get any easier here. 7.5's the number. Florida a long way from home. It seems like Florida and Texas A&M have played a lot since the Aggies have been in the league going back to 2012. This is another trip for Florida there to College Station. Mike Griffith, what do you want to do with this one?
Yeah, I just don't think things are always as easy as they seem. And, we talked about what Florida was able to do after a bye week last year and turn it around. But I'm drinking the Aggie Kool-Aid. They pulled away and got an impressive win. I think that's a shot in the arm. That's confidence. I mean, that was a really good Notre Dame team that they played. Notre Dame played Miami pretty close to even, and Miami looks like the standard in college football right now. So the fact that A&M's got that win against the Irish early tells me a little something about their talent. The fact that they put away Mississippi State, it was a big win for Florida at the Swamp. I know a lot of Georgia fans haven't been to the Swamp, but that stadium had a lot to do with that win. So give me Texas A&M and lay the 7.5.
So big number here, or at least sizable number. Mike laying it with the Aggies here. Jeff, you want to say gig 'em too? You're going to take Texas A&M?
I think I'm going to say drink the Texas A&M Kool-Aid. I think I'm going to say gig 'em. I think I'm going to see Texas A&M looking like a show pony so far this year. Lots of reasons why. I think Florida in the annual Billy Napier revival tour is going to give them a lot of trouble early, but I look to a player like Mario Craver, 30 catches, 500 yards, I believe, 4 touchdowns, 18 yards per catch so far for the Aggies. I don't think Florida has anybody quite like that, even though when their playmaker returned last week, it really did impress me. Combination of a lot of things there for Texas A&M, especially the home game. Give me Texas A&M.
So a little bit of love for the Aggies here right now. Connor Riley, how about for you?
I do worry about this pick here because a lot of the Florida success you saw last year did end up coming at home. They beat Ole Miss at home. They beat LSU at home. Last week's game against Texas was at home. I just think that this is a one-score game, and for as good as A&M looked last week, that game was 7-3 against Mississippi State at home at halftime. I know they got the cover, but I just think that this is a one-score game. It's probably a one-score game that A&M, I think, finds a way to win. But doing some quick math here, 7.5 is more than one score technically, so I'm going to take Florida here to cover this spread.
So Connor going the other direction. Kaylee Manziel, that puts the ball in your court. Gators going to College Station.
I missed out on both of these teams last week. I actually did get to watch Texas A&M and Mississippi State, and that was something that I was going to bring up if Connor did it, was how close it was for the first half. I know that we're not supposed to ever pick Florida, and I really don't like this, but something about this game screams backdoor cover to me. I don't think that Florida gets the win there, but I like them to keep it close with some momentum coming off of this last game. So give me Florida with a backdoor cover, but not to necessarily win.
So listen, while we don't like the lousy stinking Gators, we do take our pick seriously. So if picking Florida is what needs to happen to get the pick right, that's what you do. As far as me, I've been bludgeoned by Texas A&M most of this season, but I did get the Aggies right last week. Now, it wasn't always a thing of beauty, but ultimately able to pull away and get the cover against Mississippi State last week. And I'm going to trust Texas A&M to do this again this week. This is, to me, as I said before, I was only 2-4 last week, so want to be better this week. I try to keep it simple when I can, and this is the classic spot where when you have the emotional home win and now you go on the road, even if it's not a place that typically stands up, at least record-wise, as a tremendous home field advantage, crowd noise, yes, performance not always. I just think this looks like a classic flat spot for Florida that's still got a grind of a schedule in front of it. And if this matters to you, this wasn't exactly the rosiest week in Gainesville coming off the win. You had the general manager of the program forced to delete a tweet, which a lot of Florida fans thought was mocking them. There's been bad blood between Napier's staff and Florida fans just because of the obvious frustration of the team not quite being good enough. 7.5 is a big number, at least from the standpoint that you're going to win by more than a touchdown. But A&M's got one of the better defense in the SEC right now, and boy, it seems like Florida's easily succumbing to stuff like that at the moment. So, flat spot for Florida. A&M's been good. I finally got a pick with them right last week. I'm going to ride them a little longer. I will take Texas A&M minus the 7.5. That puts the flow on the side of Tamu as well. Dar, you want to say gig 'em, go with the flow, and join us on Texas A&M?
No, I actually like Florida here. I kind of like them a lot in this game. This is one game I do like. One of my ones I like the most. Florida as a dog is 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 games. If you look at the game against Texas, which I knew that was a fishy line. I should have taken Florida. I just didn't step out there and do it. What they did in that game, which what they're struggling in their first 4 games, is they weren't throwing the ball downfield. Lagway's wasn't pushing it down. You look at that Texas game, they made a concerted effort and they threw that ball downfield. He was taking shots down there. He connected a couple times to Dallas Wilson, the stud freshman wide receiver that they have. I think they know what they have to do, and they're going to have to stretch the ball with some air yards, pushing the ball downfield against Texas A&M. I think that continues in this game. I don't know if they can get it done, but I would love to see another Napier upset. Hopefully that continues to get some momentum for them so it can keep Napier there some more years, so they can have some more years of mediocrity. Just give them another couple upsets.
I'm all about that. Florida staying mediocre as long as they can sounds pretty good for me. Here's what else I think sounds pretty good. If you'll check out the Friday edition of DawgNation Daily and our R.S. Andrews Cool Down at the conclusion of the show, we'll give you our big pick on the big game outside the SEC as Oregon hosts Indiana. Now, there's 2 ranked matchups in the Big Ten play this week. Only one of these we'll pick officially, although maybe as part of our best bets on the Friday program, you'll get some of that involving Illinois and Ohio State. But if you want to hear Oregon hosting Indiana and what could happen there with that, we'll see you at the conclusion of Friday's edition of DawgNation Daily and our R.S. Andrews Cool Down for more on that. For now, though, on Go With The Flow here today, one more big pick to give, and this is an SEC game that I just love. LSU on an off week, coming off an off week after losing the Magnolia Bowl to Ole Miss 2 weeks ago, gets ready to play host to the South Carolina Gamecocks. This also a game in which quarterback injury, at least to some degree, a factor here. Garrett Nussmeier, a lot of folks wonder, is he hurt? Or maybe there's a chance that Nussmeier's just not very good right now, and that the reported injury is nothing but a smokescreen. Either way, LSU at 4-1, 3-3 against the spread in the Brian Kelly era, coming off a bye. South Carolina 4-4 against the spread, coming off a bye. So both those numbers right at about what you'd expect them to be. Both teams were off the previous week. Gamecocks going to Baton Rouge. Number is 8.5. Mike Griffith, we come back to you. What does your new system say about LSU hosting South Carolina?
Yeah, I think the bye week means a lot in this game, and I think the home field means a lot too. I'm just not convinced that South Carolina is much more than Lenora Sellers and some special teams magic. I don't think that's enough. It's going to be a big number to lay, but give me Brian Kelly and the Bayou Bengals.
So Mike lays the big number with LSU against South Carolina. By the way, it's also worth noting this begins a stretch of 5 consecutive games for South Carolina against ranked opponents. Maybe run out of gas at some point. You would assume they might, but perhaps still a little juice here for this one. Jeff Sintel, how about for you? 8.5 in Baton Rouge for LSU in South Carolina.
It's a big number. This one to me kind of screams late cover for LSU. I do believe a lot of folks that think Nussmeier is hurt. Even though there's a lot of bad juju around LSU, they're still 4-1 with a lot of things in play. I also come back to LSU kind of using the run game more in this one. They have a very talented freshman running back. His name's Harlan Berry. He looked great coming through the recruiting cycle. I think that's what they kind of need to lean on, especially in the raucous home game and Death Valley environment. Mike's new system, I don't think he's wrong on this one. I like LSU to cover.
So a little bit of love for the Fighting Tigers here. Connor Raleigh, what about for you?
It can't be this easy, right? Like it's a South Carolina team that they lost to Vanderbilt, they lost to Missouri. They're going on the road to Death Valley at night. I'm treading carefully here, but I am picking LSU in this instance. I also think this defense is still pretty good. And I don't think all that highly of South Carolina's offense, and so I think they're going to struggle to score. So give me LSU here, but I'm very, very worrisome just given how easy it sounds to take LSU in the points here.
Rare clean sweep through this point. Haven't gotten a lot of that this season. Kaylee, you going to keep it going and being on the LSU Tigers here?
Connor presents a very interesting question. Is it that easy? I say no, because you mentioned the beautiful graphic and the tweet that's been put up all week long about the ranked opponents that South Carolina is about to face. And, with their losses this far, I think they understand if they lose this, it's over with, versus LSU, if they lose this game, it's not necessarily over with. So I think for Shane Beamer, he's going to make his team understand that they know that last year, 3 losses, they were out of the playoffs. They had just missed it. And so I think this team's going to be highly motivated coming in. I don't know if the talent factor is enough to have South Carolina win, but they understand the stakes that come along with this game. And if they lose, it's over. So, since it's the first of the 5-game stretch, I don't think it's that easy. I'm going to take South Carolina.
So I'm also going to take South Carolina, but similar to Connor, who's like, boy, I'm not quite so sure. I got to be careful here because I want this to be a good game. I want to enjoy this. I think this is a fun SEC game. I got to be careful that I don't want it too much, that I invent something that doesn't actually exist. Only one true SEC road game for South Carolina thus far this year. It was a loss and a fail to cover against Missouri. But boy, a year ago, and your mileage may vary about how much you think this still matters. It is a lot of the same players, though. A year ago, South Carolina was very good on the road. 131-6 at Kentucky. Far better performance in Lexington than Georgia had. 135-9 at Oklahoma. That's a far better performance in Norman than Alabama had. 128-7 against Vanderbilt. A lot of teams struggled in Nashville a year ago. South Carolina won with some ease. Also won at Clemson last year. The only of these road games that even close, they won that 17-14. That with pretty much same team in the Shane Beamer era here just a year ago, really handling business on the road. You can make a case that South Carolina was better on the road last year than it was at home. They haven't been great at home this year. The game against Vanderbilt, albeit marred by a brief Lenora Sellers injury, was pretty ugly. But early stages of this gauntlet, while they still have some juice in them, on the road where they had some energy, they beat LSU a year ago. Why couldn't they at least keep this competitive again? I think 8.5 is too much here. I'll take South Carolina plus 8.5. Flow, though, on the side of LSU. Dar, you're going to say go Tigers, Geaux, and I take LSU here and go with the flow.
Oh, no, that's my little Cajun thing, right? That's like too easy,
nice.
Right? How Connor said it. I mean, this is a tough one to pick, but I'm going to take the Gamecocks because LSU's only scored more than 23 points once this year. That's it. They're not lighting up the boards. And that one time was against Southeastern Louisiana. LSU's offense hasn't looked right. Like they should be putting up a lot of points. So knowing that, and now they're playing an SEC team with South Carolina that has historically been good with Beamer on the road. 8.5 seems like too much chalk to lay. So I'll take those points and ride the Gamecocks.
So let's le bon temps roulette with South Carolina on the road on Saturday and see if some good luck can be had there. Okay, so that's the story here on Go With The Flow. Of course, we hope you're enjoying the earlier start time of the show, dropping in on Wednesdays. Folks seem to be liking that. And if you want more from us, including Indiana traveling to Oregon, fun game in the Big Ten, we'll give that to you as a part of the Friday edition of DawgNation Daily, our R.S. Andrews cool down at the end of the show. That plus our best bets on tap for you Friday as well. And of course, for us, there's no better bet than when it comes to your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric needs. Our friends at R.S. Andrews is the one you turn to for that. We got winter coming up. I know it seems like it never gets here, but eventually it does. And when it is here, you want your heating system to keep your home comfortable, to keep everybody toasty and warm. And if you're worried about your heating system making it through another winter because somebody told you like 2 winters ago your heating system may be about done, but you've just held on for as long as you can, well, guess what? Eventually, you probably do need a new unit. That's just the truth. But you may still be able to get some new life one more time at that old unit, and our friends at R.S. Andrews may be able to tell you how. So get it tuned back up to factory fresh specs. Find out more online, rsandrews.com, for more on that. We'll see you again next week at this same time for Go With The Flow. Best of luck with your own picks. Hopefully Georgia can find a way against Auburn. Then we'll see you Friday for more action at the end of the DawgNation Daily broadcast with our R.S. Andrews cool down. We'll talk to you then, everybody. Enjoy the games this weekend.